business women, welcome to our next session of Women with Superpowers in Business. And I am so thrilled to announce our next speaker, the beautiful Sandi Friedlos. Sandi is everybody's friend in fertility, and I think her superpower is actually her integrity and honesty, that she's not afraid to talk about or be honest about certain situations. As women, we get put in a box and afraid to talk about, and we actually quite often our power is taken away from us and we can feel guilty. Sandi, welcome, and I would love you to introduce yourself to the listeners or viewers today.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you. That's a beautiful way to introduce me. I'm a bit teary. The joy about being able to talk to women about whether or not they're going to have a child needs to start a bit sooner, about who they are as a person. And just because you've had a uterus doesn't mean you have to use it. And it is, you say, we get put in a box and we have to think outside the box. And box is a word that gets used as another word for that area. It gets very much labelled and becomes a big part of who we identify with the world as.
Yeah.
And there's so much pressure. And my superpower, I believe, is in holding space for those women who feel that pressure and need to work through whether or not they want to go ahead with adding to their family, or being able to stand in their own power and say, I don't need to have a child to make my family complete. I'm complete already, just me and my partner. And I think that it's often overlooked that people will automatically jump into, this is the next box to tick on my checklist of society's expectations of how I live a worthy life. So meeting somebody, setting up a home, having a career, and when are you having kids? It becomes one of those questions that people just throw out there like confetti. And unfortunately, for the wrong person, those kinds of questions and pressures are heartbreaking and horrible, because they either really want to have kids or they really don't. And it can be a really icky situation to go, hey, you're going to use that uterus? Like, hey, you're going to finish that hot dog and I'll have it instead. It's a loaded question. And
do we actually ask that question with intention? That's the first thing that came to mind. Or is it just like, how are you today? Or is it just naturally something as a society we've been brought up to ask? When you're having children, do we actually have any intention by that question the majority of the time, do you think?
The majority of the time people are asking questions to get to know you better. And they're not intending to cause offence, and they're not meaning to be mean. But the understanding behind the question and the meaning that it has for certain people can often be forgotten if people haven't gone down the same journey of trying and failing, or feeling like they're broken, and then having someone going, so how's that thing you're struggling with, without realising that they're struggling.
Yeah. So is it a question, Sandi, that we should be asking, or is it the question that we should just be taking out of our vocabulary until we know someone better, whether we can ask that question? And how do we get permission to ask that question, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Good point. Look, I would hope that people would get to know each other on a personal basis about what that person does and what that person likes before you ask whether they're going to add anything to them. So what have you studied? What's your area? Do you talk about the news or sport or religion? Those really safe topics that start an argument are probably better to bring up in a conversation with someone you barely know, before asking them if they're going to have kids. I would prefer, we can talk in different circles. It might be within your family and they know that perhaps you're not terribly maternal. That doesn't mean you don't want to have kids. It just means that you might not have obviously played with dolls as a kid. And just because you played with dolls as a kid doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be somebody who wants a football team yourself.
And I guess it's also whether you're female or male. You can't decide whether you want kids just because you're female, and exclude males from not wanting kids just because they're not maternal.
That's right. And that makes the difficult conversation of when you're dating as well. Like, are you dating the person, or are you dating their potential? Are you dating what they're likely to be? And if that changes, are you going to have to grieve or change your expectations of how your life is going to look based on what your partner needs and what your partner is expecting of you. So it's a tricky minefield to walk in. The whole, you grow up if you identify as a woman, there are certain expectations put on you. I'd like to shake that up a little bit down the track, but that's a bigger conversation.
Which leads me to your superpower, that I love that you are actually willing to have those discussions that other people aren't. And there's women out there that actually need to have those discussions, Sandi. They're prevented from. As women, we feel guilty, and that we are taking our power away. And I think that these sort of discussions have to happen. What do you think? You create this space for women to speak. That is your superpower. What do we have to do to have these conversations without adding judgment to them?
Okay, well, I'm a fertility coach, so you'd think that I'd be wanting to have everybody moving down that track towards having a baby. But I think the very first step in any discussion about whether or not you're starting or adding to a family is, do you want to add to that? And work out what it is that you really, really want. Because once you know what you really, really want, then you can throw everything at it and chase it down. You don't need to be chasing other people's dreams. There's enough in your life for you to be a worthy, complete, wonderful human with or without children, as long as that's your choice. And I want to really empower women to think that, and their partners, to say, well, look, yes, it might be nice for me if I was in a different situation, but this is my situation and I choose something different. I don't have to have what my parents had. I don't have to have what society tells me I have to have. I have to have what makes me happy. And I think that we overlook that sometimes, trying to please other people and show people that we're grateful for the opportunities we've been given. And we can run away down a rabbit hole of, but I must do this. Well, no, you don't. Check in first and really make sure that you and your partner are on the same page first, because it's the quickest way to diverge your paths if you're not in agreement.
So the fear around having to have children, Sandi, is greatly out there as well, that the medical profession step in, the experts that are put up there to say, about the fear of having birth, how we should have birth, all of that sort of stuff. What's your opinion on that?
I think the medical profession do an amazing job in being able to assist women who find themselves in that position of not being able to do it by themselves. I do feel, though, that we do medicalise things a whole lot more than they need to be. And if we did follow a bit of a step-by-step process to eliminate other things first, we might not see people pumping themselves with hormones quite so readily, or in such a rush because they're in fear that their fertility reserves are diminishing because of their age or something that the media is telling them that they now need to focus on. I mean, if we got told, that toothpaste was a problem, would we eradicate toothpaste? We'd probably have a look at what the science says behind it and make sure that it sits right with where we're planning to go. And a lot of the medical profession is there to fix a problem once it's diagnosed. There's a big gap in the market between, yes, you've got no uterus or a blocked tube or something physically actually defective in what is the normal textbook way that a baby is generally conceived. And then there's another cohort of women for whom modern life is getting in their way. There's a lot of pressure on them, and that manifests in their body in a way that prevents them from being in a position to conceive. And I think that comes from an emotional and mindset perspective, where we've tried to be men, chasing down careers, chasing down all the things that we're trying to achieve in our life to prove ourselves worthy, rather than taking things a little bit slower, but going faster in the process. So by pushing in the wrong direction, we're pushing away the things that we're trying to grasp.
In the speakers already, that has definitely come up, that we need to have to remember to define ourselves as women, in our physiological aspects, our mindset and everything like that, that we've pushed ourselves so forward that we've forgotten to embrace or align ourselves with who we are. One of the things that show up that you've seen for women who are pushing too hard, and it may not be a medical diagnosis that's going to help them.
Okay, I've seen people that are very focused and driven, and are expecting that because other things in their lives have been able to be seen from a different perspective and had more money or more time or a different tactic thrown at it to achieve that goal, they're able to get that result. The baby's not like that. It doesn't have a timetable. It doesn't have a schedule. It will turn up in its own good time. And look, whatever your religious background or faith-based framework that you live your life by, I don't believe that chasing after it and blaming something beyond us is the answer. I think we need to look within ourselves and work out what it is that our bodies are telling us it needs. And often we're feeling the very thing that we need to listen to need. A lot of times we're pushing away what we term negative emotions, but every emotion is just a conduit for interpreting what your body is asking for. So for example, if you're angry, something's not fair. So you need to work out what it is that you're trying to rebalance. And that frustration and injustice side of things, yes, something's awful, but what is it that needs to change? Don't get stuck in the feeling, read it and understand what it is. And that's part of the work that I do, is to work through what is it that you're feeling, what areas of your life are being dominated by this struggle and frustration, and how can you work towards putting some steps in place to break down those things that are getting in your way. So we've been taught that feelings are a negative when you feel bad, but really feeling bad is a wake-up call that something's not right, that something needs to change. Feeling happy is awesome. That's also telling us something. It means you like this particular thing and to keep doing it. And we're happy to receive that message. So why aren't we focusing on what the other messages are to be able to marry them up and help us to change our trajectory and get back on track?
That leads me to the next question, Sandi, is, are we always in a position to decide that we are ready or not ready, or want or not want children, if we haven't looked at those emotions, what you're talking about right now? If we're filled with confusion, is there, sometimes should we look at what you're talking about before we make that choice?
Absolutely. If you're confused about what it is you want, or you're confused about what it is that's happening to you, there are processes that we can go through to work out what it is that you want. And I'm in no position to force a baby on anybody, and I can't just hand you one. So I can't tell you what it is you want. That is only something that you can answer for yourself, and it's only something your partner can answer for themselves. And hopefully those two things will be similar so that you can move forward together as a team. Because yes, we're women, but our partners, they can be men and women, and they can have different opinions and thoughts and support us in what it is we want to achieve. If that's adding to the family with a baby, fantastic, get everyone on board. That also means working on your inner stuff as well, and understanding that your feelings aren't weaknesses, they're messages. Your feelings...
The pressure's put on women to have the baby, to decide to have the baby, to be ready to have the baby. And you've just brought up a really important point about the partner being included. What is their mindset and their physical state? How important is that to align with yours as well? I'm pretty sure that a baby's not going to come if that's out of balance. Does that make sense?
Well, that's generally how it works. The person who is actually physically going to carry the baby historically has been made to feel like they're broken if they can't just make it happen, and like there's something wrong with them. Male infertility has only been a very new construct, in that men would get a new wife and then they'd have a new baby, and Henry VIII, for example.
Yeah.
So you can see where the pressure is to have a baby comes from. But women tend to suffer in silence about things that they're made to feel are shameful. And if you can't do something that is inherently naturally basic, like reproduce, I mean, rabbits and cats and rats can do it, what's wrong with me? Those kind of thoughts aren't helpful. But we need to work through those to say, what is it that we can do differently to provide the environment that is welcoming for a baby, to provide the mindset that is welcoming, to provide the ability for us to cope and not have everything be tunnel visioned down into, I'm not pregnant, my life is shit.
So what's the conversation a man and a woman can have together, or a woman and a woman, or a man, but around this isn't feeling okay, whatever the decision is, this isn't feeling okay, what can we do to move forward?
Sure. So while the woman's in the tunnel vision, they're very closed off, and it's very hard for the partner who generally wants to fix the problem to be able to break into that shell and help them out. And so I work with both parts of the team to say, look, this is how you're feeling and this is how they're feeling, and being able to work as, interpreter, so that they don't have to go away from my session and try and say, hey honey, this is what's going on for me. They already know, because we've been there discussing it in the session together, and they've been able to say, look, I didn't realize that this is how you felt and how much pressure you felt to have this happen, for you to fall pregnant. I didn't realize that this is how much weight this is carrying with you every day, every moment, because people look on the outside going, oh, this month you might not have gotten that positive result. Okay, you can try next month. But it's not just next month. It's pretty much every waking minute this poor woman is having this stress going, has this micro action that I've taken ruined my chances for next month's positive result? Eating soft cheese, eating sushi, having a drink out with the girls, all of those things, they lose their fun and their flavour because we're so focused on, have I fucked it up again? And it's
a lot of pressure to put on someone's self. But what is something that if you're watching this right now, that you could, Sandi, that you would say to them, that that for them to not to feel like they're alone, that they can turn to their partner and say, hey, this is not okay inside me, and how do they explain that? Okay. What is something they can say just to start the conversation?
Sure. Well, it's not okay for them to feel alone, because 1 in 7 and sometimes 1 in 6 women find themselves in a position where they are struggling with fertility. So the fact that we've been conditioned to deal with this privately has separated us all, and we need to reach out to our partners and explain things. And what you need to talk to your partner about is, I'm feeling like if this doesn't work out for us, potentially, are we going to be okay, just the two of us? Because a big fear around not being able to have a child is that it ruins the relationship that went into making the baby in the first place. And so I know in my particular case, I was concerned that I wouldn't be enough just as me for my partner. And I had to get real clear on the fact that whether or not we had this child, we would be okay. We would still be a team, because we had chosen each other. And it's only because we chose each other that we were prepared to risk it all by trying again. I don't want people to feel like their relationships are at risk by trying to have a baby. You two are the most important people in the world to each other, and you damn well deserve to treat each other better and have that love returned, regardless of whether a baby turns up.
Which is a really important thing, I think, whether you're seeking to have a child or not. If you've chosen to be together, you need to really be that team and support each other as the individuals we are.
So those fears get wrapped up in it. It becomes this big bundle. It's like, can I have the baby? But what does that mean? And we attach all these meanings to it that make it a bigger mess than it needs to be, and a bigger pressure than we need to carry, and we shouldn't be carrying that pressure on our own. So by talking to our partners and letting them know that this is how I'm feeling like if this doesn't work out this month, I'm just going to break, and I'm going to push you away because I don't want you to be missing out on having a family. And they might turn around to you and say, but you're my family. How would that feel? They might turn around to you and say, you're right, I have to have kids or this is not working. And both of those situations are valid because that's how they feel. And then it's about working out what you do next from there.
Fair enough. Sandi, So for me, who's have my children, and I'm looking at having grandchildren, hopefully not in the near future, Haley and Billy. But anyway, that is completely up to them. Or
Yep.
to my best friend who's chosen not to have children, or to my friend that can't physically have children. How can I consciously be a better friend to support them through that? It's okay, whatever decision, kids, if you want to have grandchildren, it's up to you, friend. If you don't choose not to have children, that's cool. And to my friend that is unable to have children, that's really cool too. How do I support them through this situation? Or it's not a lifestyle choice. I don't even know what to call it without offending people.
The labels are very hard for this.
Yeah.
So it is not just a one-word thing. So you can be childless, but there's childless by choice, there's childless by circumstance, and people are in varying degrees of happiness with each of those options. So it's risky to just put a word out there and just say what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of being controversial here. I feel like it's important to have difficult conversations to show that you care. And I feel if you are in a position of trust and intimacy with mother to daughter, father to daughter, best friends, someone close to you, someone you can see is in pain and they're willing to let you see that pain, then I feel it's up to us to make sure that we express to them that we love them regardless, and we're there for them whatever their choices are, and that if they do need help, you're here to support them. But it can be difficult for women to hear from their mums things like, oh, when the grandkids come, I'll retire. When you've got kids to think about, we'll do this. The making of assumptions that these things are the next step or that they're eventually going to happen can be quite painful. And it might not always be painful, but it's something that I believe you need to have a chat with that person and say, look, you know what? I think you're awesome already. I think you've got everything you need to be a wonderful, happy, healthy person. And whatever comes next for you is a brilliant choice as long as it's what you want. So if you want to have kids, I would love to have grandkids. If you don't, I would love to have fur baby grandkids. Fine. Whatever. As long as that person is happy and healthy and not feeling like you're pushing them to do something to make something better in you. Because I'd hope that the person talking to them, so in this case it was you in this scenario, that you would feel confident enough within what you have already to be happy that the person that you're talking to is going to be happy and going to be okay as well. You don't need to fix them or change them to make that, to force anything on them for that to, that's unconditional love.
Okay, now because we're getting to the nitty gritty and the hard conversation. My question to you is, what is the biggest thing that takes the power of our uterus away from women? What is the thing that you think that just really disempowers us? What is that to you?
How long have we got?
As long as you've got. But what is the really most powerful thing that you would go, okay, stop this, stop this. It's disempowering. Claim our uniqueness as women.
I would tell women that they should stop thinking they have to pretend to be men. You have these bits and they are going to impact on how you go about your day. Boys don't have to deal with periods quite the same way that women do. And there are things in your body that are there for a function. They provide a purpose. There are hormones that do things in your body that are different for men and women. Whether or not that ends up in a baby is completely beside the point. Your life is a choose your own adventure and you haven't written the ending yet. So pick the bits that you want to focus on and go for those. And whatever anybody else is telling you need to do, you need to try and say, look, I've got this. This is my life. And I love you for wanting the best for me. But these are the things that I've decided are best for me. And whether that's a baby or not is completely your choice. Do some research, babysit for a bit. If it doesn't work out for you, don't have kids. If you do want kids, carry on. And I will be here to help you and cheer you on, whatever you decide, 100% of the way.
I guess because we're talking about fertility and infertility, there would be people that physically can't have children for whatever the reasons are,
Mhm.
but still want children. What do you say to those people?
I would say that the definition of family is completely open and up to you. You don't have to have man, woman, boy, girl, dog, white picket fence. It doesn't have to look that way. If you look around, you'll notice people of different races, different cultures, different shapes and sizes, different sexual persuasions, and no two families are actually the same. And whatever you choose to make as your framework of your family is perfectly valid so long as you feel fulfilled. If you don't feel fulfilled, then look into what it is that will fulfill you. But I don't believe that coming at trying to make a family because there's a hole in your heart that you need to fill is a fair thing to do. If you're forcing a baby to be the reason that you're happy, that's a lot of pressure to put on two little shoulders. And then they're going to have to be perfect, otherwise you're not happy. And then you're going to have to be grateful the whole time that they're here, because then what did you do it all for in the first place? So work out what it is that is going to make your life complete and how you're going to go about it. If it's going to be having kids and you physically can't, there are other options. And I know that sounds really flippant to those people who are struggling, and I apologize, but there really isn't much of another way to put it. If you want kids, you can adopt. There are step families. There are fostering options. You can have as many dogs and cats as you like. You can have houseplants, so long as you're fulfilled. If you're not fulfilled, then please seek the support you need to be able to be that way. It might not be me. It might be any other people that I can link you up with, or anybody that you can find that is, properly qualified and able to support you and doesn't have an agenda. Asking your mum about it might not be the best place to go if she's desperately wanting you to have kids. That's feeding into a cycle of pain there that might not be terribly healing for you.
And you just touched upon that you have a great network and are forming a great network that you can refer people to. How important is it to people who are on the fertility journey or in fertility journey to have a support network around them of people who don't have judgment about what they're going through and are there to support them in their journey?
It's the foundation for everything. If you've got people with an agenda forcing their opinions on you, then you're going to end up coming up against some sort of conflict. It's either going to be following a process that you don't believe in, and therefore it won't work because you haven't got that emotional investment in it. But equally, if you change your mind on something, the people who actually care about what you want to make happy in your life can direct you to other resources. So, for example, if you decided after 2 sessions with me that you actually weren't in a position to continue and have a baby, I'd be more than happy to forward you on to someone who is helping with come to a resolution about what is happy for you without a baby. And I'm more than happy to refer to people who are childless by choice without ever having stepped into the I want to make a baby roller coaster. Everybody's journey towards family is unique and special. And it's valid, whatever you choose, as long as you come from a place of, yes, this is what I think is right for me next. So I'll help you along the way to make your next best decision towards your goal of being happy and content.
Do you also use practitioners that support the fertility journey, not just emotionally and mindset wise, but not necessarily you have to go straight down the IVF way? There's other, like chiropractors, I think you've mentioned.
Yep. I think if you've got your body working in the best optimal way you can, so being healthy, and that can mean a whole different things. It can mean your diet. It can mean whether you're sleeping better. It can mean drinking enough water. It can mean having, a kink in your back straightened out. It can mean a whole different sorts of things. But those are decisions you make for yourself about what is going to be the next best thing for you to work on to create the foundations for the next step in your life. So
what's important to look at for practitioners, whether someone similar to yourself or a chiropractor or an acupuncturist or even an IVF clinic or a doctor, what's something that we as women should look for when we're choosing these people to support us?
They need a healthy mix of optimism and realism. They should never promise you things that they can't deliver, including a baby, including a pregnancy, but the outcomes need to be available for you to have a look at and understand that, okay, I might not get a baby, but do I get something else? Am I still making progress by working with this person, either personally or in my physical health? And how we're going to assess how we're going. Do I just blindly do 50 sessions into the future and not really check in? What's the structure involved there? And do I get a chance to check that this person and I are on the same wavelength? Are we going to work well together? Do I trust that what they're saying is helpful? Do I trust that they have my best interests at heart, not just that they want to hear that PayPal ding at the end of our session?
So what I get from that is that you want to have your journey needs infertility or choosing or not needs to be progressive. You're not necessarily going to get to an outcome, but you need to work with people to support you to progress on that journey.
Yes.
Beautiful. So what aren't we hearing, Sandi? What aren't we hearing in the media? I want to bring us to bring up the coronavirus, because at the moment there's facts, and now our supermarkets have run out of toilet paper because of the media hype, and everybody's scared and fear. And I think this is very similar to what I'm referring to pregnancy as coronavirus, but the media story in that glorifies the fear and the journey of what isn't there.
Yeah.
What are we hearing in the media that we should be ignoring, and what aren't we hearing in the media about being fertile or infertile?
Okay. I find the media can go one of two ways with this stuff. They're either celebrating the medical miracle that is mid-40s to 50s pregnancy in celebrities going through IVF or surrogacy, or they're telling young women that they're getting too old to have babies on their own and they need to go and freeze their eggs because they'll have no chance of having a baby if they don't get pregnant between the ages of 28 and 33. What is the truth behind, what is your knowledge behind that? Obviously, as we get older, our chances decrease, or the easiness of it decreases, should I say? Is that correct? Not so much. I think
okay.
Look at the facts here. The surveys that were done on the research that is based on the declining rate of fertility after 35, it's based on women from the 1600s in Dutch rural farming areas. Now, these are people who didn't have vaccinations, didn't have good health, didn't brush their teeth, anything we associate with modern health these days, apart from eating clean, I suppose, because they didn't have, packaged foods and that sort of stuff, would lead us to believe that perhaps we need to look at the science again and have a look at really what is the decline in egg reserves in modern women. Now, it's all well and good for us to talk about how as you get older, you're not going to have as many eggs, fair enough, but for people to start panicking and freezing their eggs to put them aside, there's really very little evidence that those eggs that have been frozen are going to be viable for very long anyway. And I think it adds to the sound of the ticking biological clock in the background that is already on the minds of women who are trying very hard to tick off those extra boxes before they start to have a child. Because even without IVF and the cost involved, modern life is expensive. In Australia, you're expected to buy a home and start paying off a mortgage. And it's very difficult to do those things on a single income. So if somebody's going to fall pregnant and drop out of the workforce for a little while to either raise the child or have maternity leave before going back to their careers, there's this huge pressure for the baby to turn up when it's convenient and when it's affordable, rather than when you feel ready within your relationship. And if you don't feel ready within your relationship before you're 30, everyone starts panicking. Everyone starts putting all this pressure on you to say, well, you better hurry up. Like, is he ever going to ask you to marry him? are you guys going to get married? Are you going to settle down? Have you bought the house? And I'm like, whoa. Hang on a minute. I've just qualified for my career. I need to get some runs on the board. And unfortunately, some careers are real burners. They make you work a long schedule of thankless hours that don't leave you a lot of time to rest and recuperate. Lawyers, for example, our universities are churning out lawyers at a huge rate, and they're being used like slaves for the first 3 or 4 years of their career. And
a lot of them are working for free just to get hours.
And to go through uni and get the qualifications and get to the clerking job and get through all that crap to be at their, what society terms to be their peak fertility time, that means that they completely burn their career, and their whole self-worth that they've built up becomes, well, I can't have a baby now. I'm broken, I'm worthless. And that's a horrible thing for society to do to a generation of women who have the need to work and the need to prove themselves, but having that ripped away from them because no, you need to focus over here on this other priority that society tells you need to.
So my question is it career, business or baby, or can we have both?
I'd like to remove us from that conversation and say, what is it you want? And have that be the right answer.
What if we do want both though, Sandi?
I have no
We've gone through uni and we've done all of that, and then we want to have those. So we've actually set ourselves up, and we go, okay, it is time for me to have a baby, but everyone's saying, no, it's too late, it's too hard, it's too, what would you say to them?
We need to have the discussion about why is the system set up this way? Why do people who have the responsibility for raising the child, which tends to be the female, but tends to be that way because the male can earn more and provide a better return on investment for their time away from the family into the household. If we can address that, we can remove the need for this either or opportunity cost situation where people are feeling like they're either missing out on their career or they're missing out on being with their kids, because I don't know too many people who have children that want to just hand them over to somebody else while they go to work. We want to be involved in their lives. We didn't have them to just pop them in daycare.
It's a really hard topic.
It is so hard. I don't have the answers to this yet, but it's something that I'm wanting to agitate with and get the politicians and the system creators and the capitalists of our society to be able to work out what is it that we value. Is it the dollar? Really? We don't need money. We need communities, because if we have strong, healthy communities, we have strong, healthy relationships. We don't have people who are homeless versus people who have a mansion and are living by themselves. I think there's this wide spectrum of things that can all be addressed if we have a look at some of the fundamentals in our society.
And we do need to have a look at it, and we do need to have brainstorming and research about it, because the other day there was something on the news to say that women who have children should get more paid maternity leave and this and that. And then you look at the woman who's chosen not to have a child, they don't get that as well. So it's a really contentious issue for people, because
I think as a society we struggle to make anything fair. We notice what's wrong and we try and fix that, and then somebody else puts their hand up and says, hang on, you've overlooked us. And we are working on a political cycle that is a very short period of time, which is okay if you have people who are following an ethos, but I could rant. I'm going to get really ranty and political here. I honestly believe that our political system needs to be based on what policies we want to see in place, not which face do we want to see in the chair. I don't care who you are, so long as you're providing the things that society needs as a whole to get by. So I don't want to vote for the person.
Let's educate people how to vote. Let's educate people what policies are.
One of the only nations in the world that makes voting compulsory, and so many people just go, I'm annoyed that you made me do this today, and just throw it away.
Which I agree with compulsory voting, but I think we need to educate children how to vote, why they're voting. Not, Australian politics is optional in secondary schools. It shouldn't be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It should be something that we do so that we can be educated and learn discussions like this of how best do we serve You know, we're talking about increasing our population and we want women to have children. Well, how best do we support that? And, you know, how do we make the women who don't want to, how best do we support them? Huge conversation.
And
we've just gone off a little bit off track.
We were able to job share really simply, and when it had the childcare support to be able to job share, we could create all these jobs that the politicians want to crow about. We could create the productivity returns, the increase in GDP, the increase in engagement from the unemployed. If we were able to create these systems where you didn't have to choose between going to work and having a family, I don't feel that that choice is fair.
And I think we're talking about, you know, using our uterus as power, etc. I do think that we're entitled to, next time that you meet a politician or you have a question, email them and say, as a woman, I actually have the power to increase the economy. I want to know the answers to this. Have these discussions around, you know, we're talking about fertility, but you have the power of deciding what you want to do. And in the same power, you have the deciding, you know, you can actually ask people and politicians how they're going to support you within that choice you've made.
Yep. There are a few things more organised and effective than a part-time mum. She'll get in there, bash out the work and get home. It's fantastic to be part of teams where people are empowered to do that.
And to choose jobs that you want to do, you know, for a woman to not have to be in the pressure of running their business so they can choose when they spend time with their child, to actually have, you know, the backing of being able to work, you know, to work with somebody else and choose when and not, you know, when you want to be in work and when you don't want to be in work. It's such an important discussion to have.
I'm a Libra and I'm
so am I.
very able to see the benefits of lots of different choices, and I get stuck with picking out the right one. For example, getting married, I only tried on 3 dresses because I knew I would never choose one because everything would have something that I liked. So I can see the benefits of both sides of an argument. I can see the merits in lots of different things that can be incorporated. And I think that's a superpower in itself. Not that I'm indecisive, but that I'm prepared to look at other options and see what can work differently to make the outcome that we're wanting a reality.
And I'm similar to you. I don't like shopping because that gives me way too many options. But by having that, looking at both sides of an argument, it gives you permission to ask the questions you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important. What do you give the women watching this today permission to do, Sandi?
I would like to give you permission to own the fact that you are an amazing, wonderful, perfect person already, and that whatever you choose to do with your life and your body is completely up to you.
That is just the most amazing advice, because I think whether you're a businesswoman, you're a stay-at-home mum, or you're a person who doesn't know yet, it's okay not to know yet as well. Do you agree with that? Like, you don't have to make that decision right now, because you are perfectly where you are meant to be right now with what you're capable of. Your capability and capacity is really cool right now, and you're an amazing woman to be able to do that.
Oh, thank you.
That's right. So, Sandi, if people want to contact you and talk about your superpower further, how can they do that?
Okay, so I have a website, sandifriedlos.com. It's a weird spelling, so we'll put a link in hopefully for you to find me. But I have a website, I have a blog, I have a Facebook page. Please come and lovingly stalk me wherever you can. Drop a line to me. Sandi@sandifriedlos.com is my email address. And
awesome. So, Sandi, after people view this, you will pop in and answer their questions if they've got any questions?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So, Sandi, thank you. I'm so thrilled that we got to have this conversation. And honestly, viewers, if you have a question about your fertility or infertility journey that people just aren't getting, please reach out to Sandi, because it really is her aim and it's one of her values and within her integrity to actually hear what she's saying. So do please reach out to her. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you with the next speaker. Bye.